What did your crush do that completely ruined your infatuation for them? Got arrested for being a child molester. No previous signs. Asterisk edited to say arrested for being instead of convicted as. Not listening whenever I would share a hobby of mine but insisting me into listening to theirs. We had been going out for a few weeks and on the way home from a party, we went to get McDonald's and he paid for me. I have an allergy and they got my order wrong. I asked and it wasn't a problem, they made me a new burger and told me to keep the incorrect one as they couldn't resell it. I offered it to him, he didn't want it so I said I would just bring it home to give to my housemate so it wouldn't go to waste. He was completely fine with this. Then a homeless guy came in and started asking at the tables for change. I offered him the burger and he took it. My date went crazy at me for giving away the burger that he had paid for, even though he was okay with me giving it to my housemate, and followed the homeless man, shouting at him to give it back. Then got the guy kicked out of the restaurant. It was terrifying. He went from easygoing and charming to furious in a split second. Then when he sat down again, he acted like everything was normal and asked me if I wanted to go home with him. It was a side of him I hadn't seen before. I'm glad he showed his true colors early. Participated in the murder of a homeless man. This girl I had a crush on early on in high school told me that she recently broke up with her last BF because his dad passed away suddenly, and, as she put it, wouldn't stop being depressed and a fucking crybaby about it. I didn't talk to her much again after she said that. Oh. This post made me remember a really hurtful one. When I was 17 at my first year at uni I made friends with a girl in my year, it wasn't like instant crush but she was funny and I grew to like her. One day we were going home after classes together, turns out we lived pretty close to each other, chatting and joking. And at one moment she says, I really like talking to you just about anything, I would have jumped you right now if you weren't so ugly. I was a really awkward teenager, severely underweight, skin problems and some other complexes. On top of that very introverted, so it outright killed my remain self-esteem. Thing is that she actually didn't realize the effect of her words, it was like a passing comment to her and wasn't said with malicious intent. That fact actually made these words even more hurtful. Tried to pour vodka into my drink when I wasn't looking. We went somewhere and she and her friends pulled into all 3 handicapped parking spaces. There were plenty of other spots, but these were the closest. None of them were handicapped in any way. Everyone does it, she said. No, they do not. Told me that the reason she hung around me was to get close to my very tall best friend. They dated for 3 weeks before he dumped her. She mentioned her last name. I recognized it. Haha. It's probably a good thing. Found out her grandmother was my grandfather's older sister. It worked out okay. We were on a double date sorta deal with her friend and my friend. We found that out pretty early in the night. We literally laughed our asses off for 15 minutes, making incest jokes and traded dates. I ended up dating her friend for about 4 years. Laughed at me when I asked them out. Edit, thanks for all the support and commiseration 3. This all happened about 40 years ago, but I ended up okay. We talked about exes, she mentioned how she should have cheated on him because he was boring to be with. Yet I'm out. Turns out she had absolutely no filter. She took pride in saying what was on her mind, which was kind of cute at first, until I realized that she literally meant it, every thought in her head spewed out of her mouth no matter who could hear it. Not a day went by where she didn't get into an argument with someone over some insensitive or insulting comment that she made. She was the female embodiment of Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm. I figured out he was dating me and 2 other girls and playing each other against us. One night at a party one of the other girls wanted to fight. Honestly I was drunk and tired and was getting in my friend's car to leave when she tried to start a fight with me over him. I just said tell your friends we got in a fight and you won. Also, you can have him. I got in the car and went home to bed. That was the day I decided I would never fight over a guy. If he wants to be with me he will be with me. He was rude and dismissive to my little brother. I know little brothers can be annoying but he, brother, 13, wasn't being nosy or disrespectful. He just wanted to know if my crush liked video games. I'm also really close to my siblings and wanted them to be included. The next boyfriend I had / now husband spent hours teaching my little brother to play old school StarCraft and to this day 6 years later they still play video games together at least once a week. Upgrades, people. Edit, a word. If band names were literal, what would be the best/worst concerts to attend? Fine Young Cannibals. Megadeth, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. REM would be a snooze fest. Smash Mouth. Rush. It'd probably be like 5 seconds. I'm sure Sex Pistols would be interesting. Blue Man Group would be the exact same lol. A Flock of Seagulls would be pretty awful tbh. Conjuring mental images of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. Tame Impala would be cool. You could go up and pet the impala. Circle Jerks. The Killers. Cradle of Filth and Napalm Death would probably be up there. Gorillas would be pretty scary. Jimmy Eat World would be a bad one. Counting Crows would be pretty dull. 1, 2, oh I guess that's all of them. Caw. Bilingual people, what is a thing that non-bilingual will never understand? The fact that I no longer translate in my head when I use my second language. The fact that I can be unaware which language I am reading. I have a bit of a stutter in one language but not the other. Jokes that work in both languages are the funniest. Literal translations rarely work. A lot of monolingual people seem to think other languages are like their language but with other words, and every word is an equivalent. Having an accent regardless of which language you're speaking. Edit. Learning a language allows you to feel better understood as we interact and build connections with others. So it's frustrating when you feel as though you are not communicating as clearly as you would like to express yourself. It's been great to feel understood. I've enjoyed reading through the comments and learning that there's a lot of people that are actively becoming multicultural. Translating is a whole different skill than speaking another language. When I first learned English, I would translate things in my head to understand them. As I became fluent, I stopped doing that because I didn't need to. When someone speaks to me in English, I don't translate stuff in my head back to French to understand them, I just automatically understand it. Q2 if someone speaks English, and another person doesn't, and ask me hey, can you translate what he said, I completely suck at it. I can ultimately do it but it means I need to take what was said in English, and reprocess it in French and find the most adequate words for translation and it's honestly not that easy to do. How near impossible it is to translate words when there is only one word for something in one language but multiple variants of it in another. For instance, the word cousin in English is just cousin, but there are 8 different words for cousin in Chinese, all extremely specific: older male on maternal side, older female on maternal side, younger male on maternal side, younger female on maternal side, older male on paternal side, older female on paternal side, younger male on paternal side, and younger female on paternal side. There is no general cover-all term for cousin. So when an English speaker says, I was having dinner with my cousin last week, how do you translate that into Chinese, for a Chinese audience, without knowing which of the 8 cousin categories it falls into? It creates a 404 error, cannot compute in the interpreter's brain. If you are ever giving a speech in English to a Chinese audience and want to see a look of crazed terror on your interpreter's face, just use the word cousin and watch the panic and despair unfold. Source: was an interpreter. That the way language is constructed is not straightforward. It's not just a different set of words and rules of grammar, it's kind of a whole different way of processing thoughts into speech. Real-time translation takes a lot of mental energy. Forgetting words from your native language if you are using the second language too much. I have lost count of how many times I knew what I wanted to say in any other language, yet I forgot how to say it on my own native language. I end up remembering them later on anyways, but it is such an embarrassing feeling. Edit. Also, another little thing. Accidentally switching languages in the middle of a conversation. I may be talking to someone in English, and when I didn't understand something, I would be like, "Shoo. What?" in Spanish, all without even thinking about what I did until I realized that I spoke in Spanish by mistake. It's not really common for it to happen, but I do remember each and every single time it does. Speaking 2 languages at the same time. Usually because you forget certain words in one language but remember it in the other, or because a word is easier to say. Jai akyun ide what the fuck you're talking about. Some jokes make no sense in other languages. When some word only comes to mind in another language, and you just can't remember what that word is in your native tongue. You have different personalities based on the language you're currently speaking, and your native language has emotional ties that aren't always present in other spoken languages. That feeling that you're not conveying your emotions correctly when speaking. It's like knowing a better word to describe them in your native language and not finding a proper equivalent in the one being spoken. When you want to say something you have the precise expression for, in another language than the one you are just speaking in. Edit, 9K imaginary internet points, Dave Fuke. Watching or reading something, a film, series, or book, in its original language is just much better.